Summer was in full swing, and Ryan, 22, arrived at the camp buzzing with excitement. He loved outdoor challenges, but was even more thrilled about the chance to meet new people. On the first day, his eyes landed on Connor, a slightly older guy with an intriguing presence. Connor, 23, was reserved and seemed focused on enjoying the camp experience on his own terms. Ryan couldn't help but notice Connor's athletic build and calm demeanor. The first day was packed with group activities, filled with laughter and bonding. Ryan, with his charismatic personality, quickly made friends. He tried to strike up a conversation with Connor, but the latter seemed hesitant to open up. There was something mysterious about Connor that only piqued Ryan's curiosity further. During the group assignments for the overnight hike into the forest, the instructor placed Ryan and Connor in the same team. Ryan saw this as the perfect opportunity to get to know him better. Connor didn't seem overly enthusiastic, but accepted the pairing without complaint. It was a small group of 6, all excited about exploring the wilderness. As the day progressed, Ryan made several attempts to engage Connor in conversation. He asked about hobbies, sports, and what brought him to the camp. Connor responded politely but briefly. Still, Ryan felt like he was starting to chip away at Connor's walls. The hike to the campsite was long, but the group was energized. The guide explained they'd set up tents after a few hours and build a campfire for dinner. Everyone followed the trail eagerly, excited for the night ahead. Ryan found himself stealing glances at Connor more often than he intended. He told himself it was just curiosity, but the prolonged looks and stray thoughts hinted at something deeper. Connor, on the other hand, noticed Ryan's attention but wasn't sure how to respond. The forest seemed welcoming, with the sound of birds and leaves rustling in the wind. Yet, an unexpected turn of events was about to transform Ryan and Connor's camp experience entirely. After hours of hiking, the group paused for a brief break. Ryan felt the urgent need to step away for a bathroom break and, awkwardly, asked Connor to come with him. "I'm not going alone, and you look reliable," Ryan joked with a grin. Connor hesitated but eventually agreed. The two stepped off the trail and ventured deeper into the forest. Ryan cracked a few jokes to lighten the mood while Connor stayed quiet, scanning their surroundings. He wasn't necessarily paranoid, but felt uneasy about wandering too far from the group. After Ryan took care of business, the two tried to retrace their steps, but something was off. The trail markers seemed to have vanished, and the forest suddenly felt endless. Connor suggested climbing to a higher vantage point for a better view, but the dense trees made that impossible. "Well, I guess we're officially living out a horror movie cliché," Ryan joked nervously, masking his growing concern. Connor didn't respond immediately, his focus on their surroundings. "Maybe we should stay put and let them find us," Connor suggested. Ryan didn't like the idea of waiting. He believed they could find their way back if they tried hard enough. Time passed, and as daylight began to fade, it became clear they were truly lost. The looming reality of spending the night in the forest settled in, making both men uneasy. "We should set up camp here. It's safer than walking in the dark," Ryan said, trying to sound confident. Connor nodded in agreement, and the two began to unpack their gear. Ryan was impressed by Connor's calmness and skill in handling the situation, even if his own nerves were fraying. As they worked together, Ryan couldn't ignore how every accidental touch seemed charged. Connor, focused on the task, felt it too but avoided acknowledging it. For now, survival took priority over anything else. Once they realized they were completely lost, Ryan tried to stay upbeat, but the growing panic in his voice gave him away. Connor remained quiet, scanning the forest for any recognizable path or marker. The sun was setting, and every direction seemed the same. "Well, this is turning into quite the adventure," Ryan joked, his attempt at humor falling flat. Connor stopped and turned to Ryan, his expression serious. "We need to stop wandering. The more we move, the harder it'll be for anyone to find us." Ryan nodded reluctantly, though the thought of staying in one place made him uneasy. "Okay, but maybe we should at least pick a spot to set up camp before it gets too dark." As they searched for a clearing, the two began talking to distract themselves from the situation. Ryan asked Connor about his life, hoping to lighten the mood. Connor hesitated, but eventually opened up about how he had always been a bit of a loner. "I prefer being outdoors, away from people. It's peaceful," he admitted. Ryan listened intently, sensing there was more to Connor's story than he was letting on. Ryan shared a bit about himself, talking about how he loved making people laugh, but often felt like he had to put on a show to keep others happy. "I guess being out here's a good break from all that," he said. Connor gave him a small smile, appreciating Ryan's honesty. The conversation flowed more naturally as they started to feel comfortable around each other. Finally, they found a small clearing surrounded by tall trees. It wasn't perfect, but it would do for the night. Ryan and Connor worked together to clear the area and prepare it for their tent. Ryan couldn't help but notice how capable Connor was, his calm demeanor reassuring in the otherwise tense situation. As they set up camp, their hands occasionally brushed, sending small jolts through Ryan. Connor seemed to notice too, but neither of them said anything. The unspoken tension between them grew with every passing moment, though both tried to focus on the task at hand. By the time the tent was set up, the sun had completely disappeared, leaving them in near total darkness except for the glow of their flashlight. "Looks like we're in for an interesting night," Ryan said, trying to mask his nerves. Connor smirked slightly, his usual reserved nature softening as he said, "Let's just hope it's not too interesting." The tent stood awkwardly in the small clearing, but it was sturdy enough to shield them from the cold night ahead. Connor worked methodically, organizing their supplies while Ryan fumbled with his flashlight, trying to be helpful. "You're pretty good at this. Been lost in the woods before?" Ryan teased, trying to break the tension. Connor smirked slightly, glancing at him. "Just prepared." Ryan's attention kept drifting back to Connor. The way he moved with quiet confidence and calm focus was mesmerizing. He wondered what it would take to really get Connor to open up. Every so often, their hands would brush as they adjusted the gear, and Ryan couldn't help but feel a spark each time. He dismissed it as nerves, but couldn't shake the sensation. As the night grew colder, the temperature quickly dropped. Ryan shivered and pulled his arms close to his chest, rubbing them for warmth. Connor noticed and handed him a spare blanket without saying a word. "Thanks," Ryan said, his voice softer than usual. Connor nodded, his expression unreadable. They sat outside the tent for a while, sharing a small meal of protein bars and water. The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Ryan occasionally stole glances at Connor, trying to read his face. He wanted to ask something personal, to deepen the connection, but the words wouldn't come. Eventually, Connor broke the silence. "Do you think they'll find us tomorrow?" Ryan hesitated before answering. Probably. They can't just leave us out here, right? Connor didn't look convinced, but nodded anyway. Ryan could sense the worry beneath his composed exterior. When they decided to turn in for the night, Connor suggested sharing the tent for warmth. It's not like we have much choice, he added, avoiding eye contact. Ryan agreed, his heart racing at the thought of being so close to him. He tried to play it cool, but the tightness in his chest betrayed his nerves. Inside the tent, the space was cramped. Their sleeping bags were almost touching, and Ryan could feel the heat radiating from Connor's body. "This is cozy," Ryan joked, his voice wavering slightly. Connor chuckled, his usual guarded nature softening. As they settled in, the silence grew thicker, the tension between them undeniable. The cold night air crept into the tent, forcing the two even closer. Ryan turned slightly, trying to find a comfortable position, but every move brought him closer to Connor. Their shoulders touched, and Ryan felt his breath catch. "Sorry," Connor muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's fine," Ryan replied, though his pulse was racing. For a while, neither of them spoke, but the proximity made it impossible to ignore the electricity in the air. Ryan turned to face Connor, their eyes meeting in the dim light. The moment stretched, each man searching the other's face for something unspoken. "Connor, do you feel this too?" Ryan asked hesitantly. Connor hesitated but nodded, his expression conflicted. Before either of them could overthink, Ryan leaned in, brushing his lips softly against Connor's. The kiss was tentative at first, a testing of boundaries, but it quickly deepened. It was as though the tension that had been building between them had finally found release. Connor pulled back slightly, his breathing unsteady. "I've never done this before," he admitted, his voice shaky but honest. Ryan smiled, his hand resting gently on Connor's cheek. "Neither have I," he said, "but it feels right." Connor nodded, a small smile breaking through his usually stoic expression. They spent the night exploring their connection, their walls slowly crumbling with every whispered word and hesitant touch. Ryan traced patterns on Connor's arm, marveling at how natural it felt to be this close to him. Connor, who had always been guarded, found himself opening up in ways he never thought possible. As the hours passed, the forest around them seemed to disappear. It was just the two of them in their own little world. They fell asleep tangled together, the weight of their fears momentarily lifted by the warmth of each other's presence. By the time the first light of dawn crept into the tent, Ryan woke up with a soft smile on his lips. He turned to see Connor still asleep, his face relaxed and peaceful. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Ryan knew this was something worth holding on to. The night after their first kiss had been a blur of emotions, but now, with the morning light, both men felt the need to talk. As they packed up their things, Connor broke the silence. "Last night, it was unexpected," he admitted. Ryan paused, looking at him. "Unexpected, but not wrong." Connor nodded, but his brows furrowed with worry. "What happens now? I've never been with anyone like that before. I don't even know if this is..." Ryan cut him off gently. "Hey, you don't have to label it. Let's just figure it out." Connor appreciated Ryan's understanding, though the uncertainty still lingered. As they walked through the forest, their conversation deepened. Connor opened up about his struggles with self-acceptance and the pressure he'd always felt to live up to expectations. Ryan listened, offering words of encouragement and sharing his own experiences with doubt and fear. "You don't have to have it all figured out," Ryan said. "No one does." The connection between them grew stronger with every word, every glance. Connor began to feel lighter, as though he'd shed a burden he didn't realize he'd been carrying. Ryan, on the other hand, felt a sense of purpose in being there for Connor, helping him navigate unfamiliar territory. When they stopped to rest, Connor surprised himself by reaching out to take Ryan's hand. "Thanks for being patient with me," he said quietly. Ryan smiled, giving his hand a squeeze. "We're in this together." As the day wore on, their fears about being lost were overshadowed by the bond they were building. They started to wonder if being found was even the priority anymore. The forest, which had once felt isolating, now felt like a sanctuary, a place where they could be themselves. But as the sun began to set again, the distant sound of voices brought reality crashing back. The group was nearby, and their private world was about to collide with the outside one. The sunlight filtered through the trees, casting soft golden rays onto the tent. Ryan woke first, feeling Connor's warm body still close to his. He lay still for a moment, savoring the peacefulness of the moment. The events of the night before replayed in his mind, and a small smile crept onto his lips. He couldn't believe how much had changed between them in just a few hours. Connor stirred beside him, his eyes fluttering open. Their gazes met, and for a moment, neither spoke. There was no awkwardness, only a quiet understanding of what had passed between them. "Morning," Ryan said softly, his voice thick with sleep. "Morning," Connor replied, his voice just as quiet, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. As they packed up their tent, reality began to creep back in. They still needed to find their way back to the group. Ryan tried to keep the mood light, cracking a joke about their romantic getaway, but Connor's expression grew serious. "What do we do if they find out?" he asked. Ryan paused, looking at him thoughtfully. "We deal with it. Together." The thought of facing the others made Connor nervous. He had always been private about his emotions, and now he was stepping into unknown territory. Ryan, sensing his unease, reached out and squeezed Connor's hand briefly. "Hey, we're not alone in this. That's what matters." As they began walking, Ryan found himself feeling a strange mix of excitement and dread. He wanted to hold on to the connection they had formed, but worried about what would happen when they returned to the group. Connor walked beside him in silence, lost in his own thoughts. After what felt like hours, they heard distant voices calling their names. Relief and anxiety surged through them in equal measure. Ryan glanced at Connor, who looked visibly tense. "It'll be fine," Ryan said, trying to sound confident. Connor nodded, though his expression betrayed his doubt. When they finally stepped into a clearing and saw the group, the others rushed toward them, bombarding them with questions. "Where were you? Are you okay? What happened?" Ryan and Connor exchanged a quick glance before launching into a vague explanation about getting lost. For now, they would keep the details of their night to themselves. The group was relieved to have Ryan and Connor back, but their story didn't sit well with everyone. Tyler, one of the more outspoken campers, eyed them suspiciously. "You two were gone all night? Together?" he asked, a smirk playing on his lips. Ryan shrugged, keeping his tone casual. "Yeah, we were lost. Not much else to it." As the group prepared to head back to the main campsite, Tyler lingered near Ryan and Connor, his curiosity evident. At one point, he darted toward the tent they had shared, unzipping it without warning. Inside, the disarray in the single sleeping bag told a story that Ryan and Connor weren't ready to explain. "Well, well, well," Tyler said loudly, drawing the attention of the others. "Looks like you two got pretty cozy last night." The group fell silent, their eyes darting between Ryan and Connor. Connor froze, his face flushing red, while Ryan stepped forward, trying to shield him from the scrutiny. "What's your problem, Tyler?" Ryan said sharply. "We were lost, cold, and had to share a tent. That's it." His tone was firm, but Tyler wasn't buying it. "Sure," Tyler said, drawing out the word with a knowing smirk. "Whatever you say." Some of the group members laughed awkwardly, while others looked uncomfortable. Connor stayed silent, his embarrassment palpable. Ryan, sensing his distress, turned to him and whispered, "It doesn't matter what they think. Let them talk." As they continued their hike back to camp, the atmosphere grew tense. A few of their friends tried to act normal, asking about the night in the forest, but others avoided them altogether. Connor felt the weight of their judgment, and for the first time, he questioned if he could handle it. Ryan, on the other hand, seemed unfazed. He walked with his head held high, refusing to let the whispers get to him. "People are always going to talk," he told Connor during a quiet moment. "What matters is how we handle it." Connor nodded, though he wasn't sure he shared Ryan's confidence. By the time they reached the main campsite, the sun was setting. The group dispersed, leaving Ryan and Connor alone. "We'll be okay," Ryan said, his voice steady. Connor looked at him, his resolve hardening. "Yeah, we will." Back at camp, whispers and glances followed Connor and Ryan, but Ryan stood firm. When Tyler made another snide remark, Ryan shut him down with ease, his confidence unshakable. Connor, inspired by Ryan's calm defiance, began to feel less weighed down by others' opinions. Later, sitting by the campfire, Connor admitted, "I don't know what's next, but I don't want to lose this." Ryan smiled. "You won't. We're in this together." The next morning, as the group packed to leave, Connor noticed some campers offering friendly smiles. For the first time, he realized he didn't care who supported them or not. What mattered was what he and Ryan had built. On the bus ride home, Connor leaned against Ryan, feeling at peace. He had found something real, something worth facing anything for. Did you enjoy the story? This incredible tale was actually shared by one of our followers in the comments. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think this story deserves? Leave your rating in the comments below. Also, if you have a story to share, something that's happened to you or someone you know, we'd love to hear it and turn it into a video for our channel. Don't hold back. Every story has the potential to inspire and captivate. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to receive daily stories full of passion, gay romance, and unforgettable emotions that you'll only find here. Thank you so much for staying with us until the end, and we'll see you in the next video.